Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. The phone was almost crushed in Connor's hand. He stared at the message on the screen with a death glare, his heart beating frantically in his chest. It was a text message from his oldest daughter, Amelia, to his wife, Vanessa, that was accidentally pushed to his tablet by his phone's sync feature. Mom, you should consider opening up your marriage to Dad. There is only one life. Having only one husband for 25 years will take a lot out of you. Liam's shape and size will definitely give you a new experience. He'll be waiting for you at that hotel on Friday. Connor's hands began to shake and his chest felt like it had been hit hard. His eyes shifted to the study window, the quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of London, the home he and Vanessa had worked so hard to run for a quarter of a century. It was in that backyard that they held Amelia's bat mitzvah, and now his daughter is encouraging her mother to betray him. He took a deep breath and dialed his lawyer. Philip, I need you to come to the office right away. His voice was surprisingly calm. I need to prepare some legal documents regarding my marriage and property. He hung up and put his phone on silent, then turned on his computer and began to systematically sort through all the unusual events of the past few months. Vanessa's sudden passion for fitness, her unexplained late nights, the upscale restaurant and boutique purchases that suddenly appear on her credit card bill. All the pieces began to fit together in his mind. Connor Foster is a senior consulting engineer with a leading building structural engineering firm in London. The 48-year-old is well-versed in engineering mechanics and structural design, specializing in the evaluation of safety systems in high-rise buildings. He was used to analyzing complex problems, identifying the most critical support points, and then applying force with precision. He never loses sight of details and never acts in haste. His colleagues and clients praise his calm judgment and thoughtful decision-making process. Connor never panics, even when faced with the most challenging projects. There was a time when a skyscraper under construction had structural problems and everyone was in a panic, but Connor calmly analyzed the data, discovered the root cause of the problem, and came up with a solution that saved the company millions of pounds in losses. This methodology and calm thinking has become part of his character. Now, faced with the collapse of his own marriage, he is equally prepared to deal with it in this way. The emotional pain almost choked him, but his rational mind told him that impulsiveness would only lead to worse results. 25 years ago, Connor, 23, and Vanessa, 22, met at the University of London. It was an inter-faculty networking event, and Connor, who was in the College of Engineering, was dragged to it by a friend who didn't want to go and hesitated before agreeing. And it was that decision that changed his life. When he first sees Vanessa, she is speaking enthusiastically to a group of classmates about her understanding of European modernist architecture. She is a student at the College of Fine Arts and dreams of becoming an interior designer. Her golden brown curls glistened in the light, her gestures were vivid, and her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Connor is so taken by her charms that he can't find the courage to go up to her all evening. It was Vanessa who eventually noticed the tall boy standing in the corner, quietly observing everything. She walked right up to him, held out her hand, and said, "You look different than everyone else here. I'm Vanessa Clark, nice to meet you." They talked all night, from architectural design to philosophy, from home to dreams. Connor is attracted to her enthusiasm and creativity, while she appreciates his down-to-earthness and reliability. Their relationship grew rapidly, and by their last year of college, they were already planning a future together after graduation. Shortly after graduation, they had a simple and cozy wedding and began their life together. The following year, Vanessa became pregnant with their first child, Amelia. Although the child came as a bit of a surprise, they gladly accepted the gift. Connor has just landed a job with an engineering firm, and Vanessa is staying home with the baby while taking on freelance design work. Those were hard but hopeful days as they saved their money and fought for the future. 3 years later, the birth of our youngest daughter, Sophie, brought even more joy to the family. Vanessa's design career is taking off, and Connor's career is on track. They moved into a bigger apartment and started saving up to buy their own house. Amelia is now 21 and studying psychology at Edinburgh University. Her youngest daughter, Sophie, has just turned 18 and is about to start her university career. As I look back on these 25 years, they have experienced countless challenges and joys together and have built a seemingly indestructible family. Connor never thought his marriage would come to this. He and Vanessa used to talk about everything, plan their future together, and spend every important moment together. He wasn't the perfect husband, and sometimes the stress of his job got him down, but he always respected and valued their relationship. Every year for their anniversary, he prepares a surprise. Every time Vanessa mentions that she wants to try something new with, he does his best to support her. Yet all this is clearly not enough. Connor tapped on his mobile banking app, confirmed the status of all joint accounts, and then compiled a list of assets in his personal name. He was not a workaholic, but he did put a lot of effort into the financial security of his family. He's built a solid investment portfolio to ensure his daughter's college educations are well funded, along with a sizable retirement nest egg. It's all about providing security and future-proofing for your family. Their home is their shared dream come true, a 4-bedroom Victorian house on the outskirts of London with a well-designed garden and spacious kitchen. It was the place where they hosted family gatherings and spent countless hours of fun. Every corner holds a memory. Now those memories are tainted. Connor's thoughts were interrupted by the vibration of his cell phone. It was a message from Vanessa. "I'm having dinner with some clients tonight and may be late. No need to wait for me." He stared at the message, an icy rage welling up in his heart. In the past, such news would not have aroused any suspicion in him. Vanessa's role as a successful interior designer requires her to meet with clients on a regular basis. But now, every word seemed to mock his trust. "Okay, be safe," he replied briefly, then opened the home's smart security system app to make sure all the cameras were working properly. A few hours later, Philip arrived at Connor's office. They were friends from college and have stayed in touch over the years. Philip is now a partner in a law firm specializing in matrimonial and property law. "What happened?" Philip asked, noting the stony expression on his friend's face. Connor didn't answer, just pushed the tablet toward him, the text message on the screen. Philip took a deep breath after reading. "I'm so sorry, Connor. I need you to help me prepare for full retaliation against both of them." Connor's voice was calm but determined. "I want to know what I can do within the law." "Don't rush into a decision yet," Philip advised. "We need more evidence." At this point, it's just a text message, and while the content is disturbing, it doesn't confirm that Vanessa is actually cheating. "I know how to get evidence," Connor replied. "I just need you to tell me how to make sure it's valid in court." They discussed this for hours, with Philip explaining in detail the UK divorce laws regarding property division and evidence of infidelity. Although the UK adopts a no-fault divorce system, infidelity and cheating may still influence a judge's decision on property division, especially if it can be proven that a spouse used family assets to support an extramarital affair. Connor took careful note of every detail and then began to formulate a plan, not out of impulse, but as a well-thought-out strategy. He knows he needs more than just a divorce, or a way to make Vanessa and Amelia truly understand the cost of betrayal. The next day, Connor took a week's vacation and told the company he needed to take care of some personal business. He then contacted a private investigative firm and made an appointment to meet with the lead investigator, Diana Matthews. Diana is an experienced ex-police officer in her 50s whose office is located in a nondescript building near London's financial district. The walls are covered with licenses and certificates, and a few family photos are on the table. Her eyes were sharp and focused, giving Connor a sense of professional reassurance. "I need to keep an eye on my wife," Connor said calmly, handing her the text message and the list of unusual behaviors he'd compiled, perfectly legal surveillance. "I need hard evidence of her infidelity." Diana read the material carefully, occasionally looking up to observe Connor's expression. "When did you first become suspicious?" she asked. "The gut feeling has been there for a while, but the definitive proof is that text message," Connor replied. Diana nods and puts down the paper. "Let me be clear from the outset that in the UK, marital infidelity, while painful, is no longer a focal point in divorce law. The UK uses a no-fault divorce system." "I understand," Connor responded. "But I need to know the truth, and I need hard evidence, both for my own psychological closure and for considerations that might affect the division of property." Diana nodded understandingly, then explained in detail the types of evidence they could legally collect. "We don't invade private spaces, we don't tap phones, we don't hack into computers or cell phones, all of which are illegal. But we can conduct tracking and filming in public places, We can analyze public financial records and social media activity, and we can obtain hotel registration information through legal channels. She opened a tablet and showed some examples of their previous work, anonymized. These are the evidence that we legally collected and were recognized and admitted in court. How long does it usually take? Connor asked. It depends on the situation, Diana replies honestly. Some cases can gather enough evidence in a week. Others may take a month or more. Based on the information and timeline you provided, I'm guessing 2 to 3 weeks should be enough. Connor pondered that time frame for a moment, then nodded in agreement. What about the cost? Diana provided a detailed list of costs, including basic surveillance costs, evidence collection and organization costs, and possible additional expenses. The cost was significant, but acceptable to Connor. We will proceed very carefully to ensure that all evidence is legally obtained and can be used in court. And we understand the sensitivity and urgency of the situation, she assured Connor. I will personally oversee the entire process. They signed the contract, and Diana promised to begin operations within 2 days and provide updates every 48 hours. Before leaving, she gave Connor an encrypted communication app account for secure contact. One last bit of advice, Diana said as Connor was getting ready to leave. Try to maintain a normal daily routine during this process. Don't change your habits or mannerisms, which may arouse suspicion. Connor nodded his understanding and left the office with both a heavy realization in his mind. He had officially begun investigating his marriage, and a hint of relief that he had finally taken action. For the next 2 weeks, Connor acted like it was business as usual. He commutes to work on time, socializes with Vanessa on the weekends, and even plans a weekend trip for the whole family. But underneath the apparent calm, he began to gather evidence while transferring important assets to personal accounts and arranging new security measures with his bank. At the same time, he begins to investigate Liam's identity. According to Amelia's text messages, this man is apparently Vanessa's lover. Through the private investigator's report and his own research, Connor quickly zeroes in on his target. Liam Reynolds, a 38-year-old editor of a high-end interior design magazine, who regularly works with Vanessa. Photographs provided by the private investigator show that Vanessa and Liam have seen each other at least 12 times in the last 3 months, 7 of which were outside of work hours. On 3 occasions, they entered a downtown boutique hotel together and left separately a few hours later. Each photo is like a knife stabbing into Connor's heart, but he forces himself to remain calm and continues to gather evidence. He needs not only confirmation of the infidelity, but the full details of the affair, when it started, why it happened, and what role Amelia played in it. While waiting for the results of the investigation, Connor begins to look more closely at Vanessa's daily behavior while reviewing the changes that have occurred over the past few months. Now the details that he had once ignored suddenly became incredibly clear. 3 months ago, Vanessa began to change her dress code, purchasing bolder and more youthful clothing than usual. She used to love elegant minimalist designs and suddenly started experimenting with bright colors and more flattering silhouettes. She made frequent trips to the salon and even tried out a new hairstyle and hair color, dyeing her natural blonde-brown hair a darker maroon with a stylish pick-me-up. Her daily habits have also changed. They used to relax together in the living room after dinner, watching TV or reading individually, occasionally discussing work or the kids. Now, Vanessa often excuses work or fatigue to go upstairs early and then texts on her cell phone in her bedroom late into the night. Once, Connor got up in the middle of the night to get a drink of water, saw the light from his bedroom peeking through a crack in the door, and heard Vanessa whispering and laughing, talking into her cell phone. When he pushed his way in, she quickly hung up, claiming to be discussing an urgent design change with a client. The most noticeable change was in her attitude toward her cell phone. Vanessa used to not care much about technology, often leaving her cell phone lying around and even forgetting to charge it sometimes. Now, it's as if her cell phone has become an extension of her body and never leaves her. She sets a new password, and when Connor asks about it, she claims it's to protect the client's design program. Whenever her cell phone rings, she quickly checks it, sometimes leaving the room to respond to messages. Most heartbreaking, however, is when he realizes that Vanessa is beginning to reinterpret their marital history. Last week, over dinner with their longtime friends Martin and Rachel, The conversation turned to career and family balance. Connor always puts his work first. Vanessa snapped, a hint of bitterness in her tone. I gave up that internship in Paris because he wouldn't move. Connor looked at her in surprise. That Paris internship was offered when they were newly married and Vanessa was in the early stages of her pregnancy. At the time, it was Vanessa herself who decided to give it up because she didn't want to move to a foreign country during her pregnancy. In fact, Connor suggested at the time that he could try to find work in Paris, but Vanessa insisted on staying in London, near her family. I remember you said you didn't want Amelia to be born in a foreign country. Connor reminded her gently. And when you wanted to open your own design studio, I fully supported you and even provided startup capital. Vanessa avoided his gaze and responded briefly. Everyone has their own version of memory. Then quickly changed the subject. This twisted narrative leaves Connor shocked and hurt. He realizes that Vanessa is not only betraying him physically, but also distancing herself from him emotionally, constructing rationalizations for her actions. She needs to portray Connor as a workaholic who ignores her needs in order to morally justify her infidelity. When he got home that night, Connor sat alone in his study, reflecting on the journey of their marriage. He thought back to those days of shared struggles and how he supported Vanessa's design dreams and took on most of the housework and childcare responsibilities in the early days of her business so she could focus on growing her business. He remembered the elaborate surprises he planned every year for his wedding anniversary and how when Vanessa's father got sick, he took a month off work to help take care of the old man. These memories made his heart ache even more, but they also strengthened his resolve to seek the truth. He won't let Vanessa's twisted narrative be an excuse for her betrayal. On Friday day, Connor pretended to have an important business meeting to travel to. He tells Vanessa he needs to fly to Manchester and is going to spend the night there. She acted a little too enthusiastically in favor of the arrangement and even helped him pack his bags. But Connor didn't go to the airport. He drove to the location designated by the private investigator and waited for what was about to happen. According to Amelia's texts, Vanessa is supposed to meet Liam at the hotel today. At 7 p.m., the private investigator sends a message confirming that Vanessa has entered the Veritas Hotel downtown, an upscale hotel known for its privacy. 20 minutes later, Liam entered the same hotel. Connor sat in his car, staring at the pictures sent to him on his cell phone screen, feeling a wave of giddiness. Even though he had been well prepared, the feeling of actually confirming that his wife was in a hotel room with another man was still breathtaking. He took a deep breath and dialed Philip's number. I've got hard evidence, he said. Now we can get started. Connor didn't come home that night. He checked into another hotel, turned off his cell phone, and began executing his elaborate plan. The first step is to ensure your financial security. He has transferred major assets to personal accounts and frozen all joint credit cards. The second step is to collect and organize all the evidence. He created a detailed timeline of Vanessa's deception and Amelia's involvement. He made multiple backups of all the evidence, photos, videos, text message logs, financial statements, and stored them in a safe place. The third step is to prepare the legal documents. With Philip's help, he drafted the divorce petition and property division proposal. Under English law, their marriage was over 20 years old, making it a long-term marriage, which usually means that the property will be divided equally. But Connor's legal team is confident that the judge may rule in Connor's favor, given Vanessa's infidelity and deception and her use of family funds for the affair. The fourth step is preparation on a social and professional level. Connor contacted their mutual friends, especially those with influence in the design industry, and politely hinted that he might soon have some unpleasant personal news to share. He also contacted several executives at Liam's magazine and arranged a chance meeting. The final and most painful step was the communication plan with my daughters. Connor decides to talk to his youngest daughter Sophie first and tell her the truth before dealing with Amelia. The next morning, Connor regained cell phone reception. Immediately, a series of notifications sounded. He had 56 missed calls, mostly from Vanessa and a couple from Amelia. There were countless other texts, the last one from Vanessa. Please pick up the phone. I can explain everything. It's a misunderstanding. Please. Connor sneered and put his cell phone on silent before moving on to the next phase of his plan. Over the next few days, Connor disappeared completely. He didn't come home, didn't go to work, didn't respond to any contact from Vanessa or Amelia. The only people who know of his whereabouts are Philip and Sophie, and he has had a long talk with his youngest daughter to tell her what happened. Sophie was shocked at first, then angry and sad. "I can't believe Mom would do that," she cried. "And I can't believe Amelia would encourage her even more." Connor hugged his daughter and felt a twinge of comfort. "At least he's got Sophie's back. I don't want to put you in the middle," he told her, "but I think you have a right to know the truth." Meanwhile, Vanessa's life is in turmoil. She was unable to reach Connor. All joint credit cards were frozen, and her bank account was inaccessible. She attempted to contact Connor's company, but was told he had taken an extended vacation and his exact return date was unknown. She turns to Amelia for help, but the two soon realize that the situation is much more serious than they thought. Not only are they unable to contact Connor, but they also discover that the home's security system has been reprogrammed and Vanessa's password no longer works. Just as Vanessa and Amelia are in a panic, Connor finally starts to fight back. First, he sent Vanessa divorce papers through Philip, along with a detailed list of evidence, including photos of her with Liam, hotel records, and text messages from Amelia encouraging her to betray the marriage. The documents make it clear that because of her infidelity and deception, Connor will seek a division of property in his favor and hold her liable for all legal fees. Second, he contacted Liam's employer and shared some worrisome information that Liam had used his position to develop inappropriate relationships with a number of designers, which may have affected the magazine's fair reporting. Although Connor did not directly accuse Liam of a relationship with Vanessa, he provided enough information for the magazine to launch an internal investigation. Third, he began to selectively share information in their social circles. Not malicious gossip, but facts and evidence. He contacted several key friends, especially those influential in the design industry, to explain the truth about the breakdown of his marriage. Finally, and most importantly, he sends a letter to Amelia through Philip expressing his disappointment and heartbreak. He didn't curse or threaten, just described in detail how her behavior had destroyed a family and betrayed her father's trust and love for her. A week later, Connor's retaliation plan began to show results. Liam was suspended indefinitely from the magazine, pending the outcome of an internal investigation. Vanessa's design studio began to suffer when several of her important clients canceled for personal reasons. And most shocking of all, she found herself subtly ostracized from her circle of friends, as her once close friends began to shun her and stopped inviting her to parties. Meanwhile, Amelia is facing a crisis of her own. Several of her college friends learned of her behavior in encouraging her mother to cheat on her and began to distance themselves from her. More importantly, she began to realize the serious consequences of her actions, not only destroying her parents' marriage, but also potentially permanently damaging her relationship with her father. Vanessa finally makes an appointment to see Connor through Philip. They met in a quiet cafe, separated by lawyers. Vanessa looks haggard. Her eyes are red and swollen. "You don't need to do that," she whispered. "We can settle this in private." Connor gazed at her calmly, without the usual gentleness in his eyes. "Like when you solved our marital problems in private." "It was just a mistake," Vanessa defended. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," Connor replied. "And not only that, you got our daughter involved. You convinced Amelia that betrayal is acceptable as long as you only live once." Vanessa lowered her head, unable to retort. "I can explain." "No need," Connor interrupted her. "All explanations should have been made before you decided to betray me. Now, we just need to discuss the terms of the divorce." After the meeting, Connor walks alone through the streets of London, feeling a strange sense of relief. Despite the hurt still in his heart, he knew he was regaining control. He is not the victim, but the one who decides his own fate. That night, he received a text from Amelia. "Dad, I know you hate me, but please give me a chance to explain." Connor stared at the message, pondering how to respond. Though the anger and sense of betrayal were still strong, this was his daughter after all. Finally, he replied, "Next Tuesday, my office, 3 p.m. Connor sits in his office, waiting for Amelia to arrive. The London sky outside the window was cloudy, as if echoing his mood. The events of the past 3 weeks had been a nightmare, completely upending his life. His once proud family is now in tatters. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Amelia stood in the doorway, looking much thinner than usual, with noticeable dark circles under her eyes. "Come in," Connor said calmly, gesturing for her to sit down. Amelia cautiously walked into the office and sat down in the chair across from her father. Her hands tugged nervously at her cuffs, her eyes not daring to look directly at Connor. "What are you trying to say?" Connor asked, no warmth in his voice. Amelia took a deep breath and finally looked up. "Dad, I know I made a terrible mistake. I'm not defending myself, but I want you to know why this happened." Connor crossed his arms and waited for her to continue. "Mom started talking to me about her dissatisfaction a few months ago," Amelia explains. "She said she felt like her life was being limited and that she was missing out on too many opportunities. At first I just listened, but then—" She paused, her voice catching. "Then I began to be exposed to some ideas about open relationships and diverse love in college. I thought that might be the solution." "So you advised your mother to betray me?" Connor's voice remained calm, but the disappointment and pain in it was obvious. "I didn't think about it that much," Amelia admitted as tears began to stream down her face. "I just wanted to make my mom happy. She looks so unhappy and Liam seems to energize her. I naively thought it was just an exploration and wouldn't really hurt anyone." "Won't hurt anyone," Connor repeated, a hint of anger finally escaping his voice. "You think it won't hurt me to find out that my own wife and daughter are plotting betrayal together?" "I was wrong," Amelia sobbed, "and I can't tell you how sorry I am. I was blinded by some half-baked theories and smug maturity. I betrayed you, Dad, and I may never be able to make up for it." Connor felt a wave of mixed emotions as he watched his daughter break down. Anger and disappointment remained, but there was also a hint of compassion. Amelia is, after all, only 21 years old, and although she is an adult, she is still very naive in many ways. "How did Liam end up in this picture?" he asked, determined to get the full story. Amelia wiped a tear from her eye and explained, "He's someone Mom met at a design show. At first it was just a work connection, but he started asking his mom out for coffee more often to discuss potential collaborative projects. Mom says he understands her, appreciates her talents, and makes her feel valued." Connor gave a bitter laugh. It's such a cliched script, a midlife crisis with a third party who's good at reading people's minds. But it's heartbreaking that Vanessa is so easily impressed by this superficial attention, seemingly forgetting everything they've been through together. "Mommy really loves you," Amelia said suddenly, as if reading her father's mind, "even after she and Liam. She also talked about you a lot after the relationship. I think she was just lost, swept away by a sense of novelty and excitement." "That's not what love is supposed to be," Connor replied calmly. "Love means respect, honesty, and loyalty, not easily abandoning a commitment when tempted." The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours. Amelia explains in detail everything that has happened over the past few months, from Vanessa's initial dissatisfaction to Liam's presence, to how she herself has become an accomplice in this inappropriate relationship. She admits her mistake and begs her father's forgiveness. Connor was silent for a long time after hearing everything. Finally, he said, "I'm not sure I can ever fully forgive you, Amelia. But you are my daughter, and that will never change. It will take time to repair our relationship, if it can be repaired at all." Amelia nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'd do anything to make up for my mistake. First of all, you need to understand the consequences of your actions," Connor said. "You're not only hurting me, you're hurting your own mother. The choices you encouraged her to make have destroyed her marriage and her career. It's a harsh lesson, but hopefully you'll learn from it what true love and loyalty is." As Amelia left the office, Connor felt a strange serenity. The conversation didn't take away his pain, but at least it gave him a clearer picture of the whole thing. Over the next few days, Connor continued to move forward with the divorce proceedings. Under English law, there are certain procedures and time frames that need to be followed for a divorce, even in cases of proven spousal infidelity. But with ample evidence and a great team of lawyers, Connor was confident that he could obtain a favorable outcome. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life continues to deteriorate. Her design studio was experiencing unprecedented difficulties, with several major clients canceling contracts, claiming personal reasons. Her social circle narrowed dramatically, and many of her friends began to alienate her. To make matters worse, Liam is officially fired at the end of the magazine's internal investigation, and he quickly casts Vanessa aside in favor of a new target. He doesn't even answer my phone calls anymore. Vanessa told Connor in a meeting with an attorney accompanying her, bitterness in her voice. It turns out that all his promises to me were lies. Connor looked at the woman in front of him who had once been the love of his life, and mixed emotions welled up in his heart. However, when he remembered the photos and text messages of betrayal, anger once again took over. It seems we've all been deceived, just in different ways. He responded calmly, not a trace of sympathy in his voice. After leaving the meeting place, Connor drove to the banks of the Thames. He parked his car by the river and walked over to the railing, looking out over the flowing river and letting his thoughts run. In this place, 10 years ago, he and Vanessa had celebrated their 15th wedding anniversary on a particularly romantic evening. At that time, they stood and looked ahead to the next 10 or 20 years together. Now those promises and dreams are broken. Are you okay? A voice interrupted his musings. Connor turned his head to see Philip standing behind him. I had my assistant track your location, Philip explained, worried you might do something stupid. Connor shook his head and smiled bitterly. Don't worry, I'm not the type. I just wondered why a 25-year relationship could be betrayed so easily. Philip stood up beside him and was silent for a moment, then said, feelings are complicated, and people are even more so. But it's not your fault, Connor. I know, Connor replied. But knowing and feeling are two different things. Over time, Connor's retaliation program continued to take effect. Instead of resorting to any illegal means, he uses his contacts and influence to ensure that both Vanessa and Liam pay for their actions. His first target is Liam. Through careful research, Connor discovers that Liam has a pattern. He often uses his position to approach married female designers, develops illicit relationships with them, and then uses those relationships to promote their work in magazines. Not only is this a violation of professional ethics, it may also constitute workplace harassment. Connor gathered evidence of Liam's track record over the past 3 years, including affairs with at least 4 married designers, and then passed the information on to the magazine's executives through an influential friend in the publishing industry. An investigation ensued, and what Liam had done soon came to light. At the same time, Connor began strategically influencing Vanessa's professional network. In the design industry, connections and reputation are crucial. Through private conversations with key customers and industry leaders, Connor succeeded in getting the facts straight. Instead of spreading rumors or maligning, he calmly and objectively shares the evidence. How Vanessa betrayed her family and used her relationship with Liam for professional advantage. Meanwhile, Connor begins to rebuild his life. He rented a new apartment, went back to work, and began to resume socializing. To his surprise, many of his friends took his side, offering him support and understanding. The way you handled it was admirable, his colleague Martin told him over a lunch. A lot of people would have had a complete meltdown or done something extreme, but you kept your dignity and your sanity. Connor just smiled slightly. He knows his revenge is carefully calculated not to destroy Vanessa's life, but to make her truly understand the cost of betrayal. He didn't need violence or extreme behavior to make that happen, just to let the truth come out and let natural consequences play out. 3 months later, the divorce proceedings were finally finalized. The judge ruled in Connor's favor, taking into account evidence of Vanessa's infidelity and her use of family funds to support the affair. He acquired ownership of the family home, as well as most of the joint investments and savings. Vanessa was given only a small portion of the property and some personal belongings. As he left the courthouse, Connor felt a mixed emotion, not the joy of victory, but a heavy sense of relief. 25 years of marriage came to an end, leaving behind nothing but memories and lessons. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life continues to fall apart. Her design studio eventually closed due to loss of clients, and she was forced to accept low-paying jobs to make ends meet. Liam has long since disappeared from her life in favor of new prey. She tries to rebuild her social circle, but finds that many doors have been closed to her. Most heartbreaking for her was the change in her relationship with her daughters. Sophie hardly ever contacts her anymore, and while Amelia doesn't completely alienate her, the relationship between the two becomes strained and awkward. Vanessa finally realizes that she has lost not only her husband and family, but also her self-esteem and social status. And all because of her impulse and the pursuit of freshness. A year later, Connor receives a letter in his office from Vanessa. "I know it's too late," she wrote, "but I want you to know that I am beyond sorry for my behavior. I betrayed your trust and love and destroyed everything we built together. Now I'm paying for that mistake every day, and the pain will probably be with me for the rest of my life. I don't expect your forgiveness, only that you find new happiness." Connor set the letter aside without replying. He has moved on and started a new chapter in his life. The pain was still there, but no longer occupied his entire thoughts. He learned to trust again, though the process was slow and difficult. Most importantly, his relationship with his daughters began to mend. Sophie quickly forgave her father for his harsh reaction and understood his pain. Amelia, on the other hand, took longer, but gradually they rebuilt trust through sincere communication and mutual understanding. "I learned a lot from this, Dad," Amelia tells Connor after a family dinner, "about loyalty, honesty, and the consequences of actions. I will never make the same mistake again." Connor looked at his daughter and saw the sincerity and maturity in her eyes. Perhaps that's the only consolation. In the midst of the pain and betrayal, his daughter learned a valuable life lesson. As for Vanessa, her story serves as a cautionary tale. Betrayal can destroy not only a relationship, but a person's entire life. She lost everything: love, family, career, reputation, just because of a moment of weakness and a desire for excitement. And Liam, the third party who fueled this tragedy, paid the price. His reputation in the industry was severely damaged, and several magazines refused to hire him. His pattern of behavior comes to light, making it difficult for him to continue his life of witch hunting. Just as Connor's life begins to get back on track, something unexpected happens. One evening, the doorbell rang, and upon opening the door, he was surprised to find Liam standing in the doorway, looking haggard. "Can I talk to you?" Liam asked, tension evident in his voice. Connor hesitated, then sidled up to let him in. He had no fear or anger, only a strange calmness. "I'm here to apologize," Liam said straight away as he sat down. "I know it's probably pointless, but I need you to know that I'm ashamed of my actions." Connor crossed his arms and looked at him expressionlessly. "Why come now? Is it because you lost your job and your reputation?" Liam shook his head, partly. "But more importantly, I began to realize that I had been avoiding real relationships and commitment. I used these short adventures to fill the emptiness inside without ever thinking about the damage I was doing to others." "You destroyed a family," Connor said calmly. 25 years of marriage, a home for 2 daughters. "I know," Liam lowered his head. "There's no excuse for that. I hope you know that Vanessa really loves you. She talked about you a lot, even when we together. She said you were a good person and that she made the mistake." Connor felt a pain go through his chest. Even in the midst of her betrayal, Vanessa still talks about him, a fact that is both heartbreaking and brings a touch of bitter comfort. "Are your feelings for Vanessa real?" Connor asked suddenly. Liam was silent for a moment, then replied honestly, "No. At least not the kind of relationship that lasts a lifetime. I was attracted to her talent and beauty, but I never wanted a real relationship with her." Connor nodded, somehow confirming his suspicions with that answer. "Well, you got what you wanted, and then you abandoned her." "When things got complicated, I ran away," Liam admits, "like I always do. But this time it's different. This time I can't escape the consequences of what I've done." After the conversation, Connor sends Liam away. The meeting didn't lead to forgiveness or reconciliation, but it provided a strange sense of closure. Seeing Liam admit his mistake and suffer the consequences for it somehow validates Connor's judgment. Betrayal will eventually bring a price. A few weeks later, Connor received a call from Sophie. "Dad, I'm a little worried about Mom," she said. "She looks really bad. She barely eats and spends all day cooped up in that little apartment." Despite remaining resentful, Connor cares for the woman who was once his wife. "What do you think I should do?" he asked his daughter. "I don't know," Sophie replied honestly. "I just thought you should know." After much deliberation, Connor decides to visit Vanessa, not to reconcile or forgive, but out of humanitarian concern. When he arrives at her apartment, he is shocked by what he sees. The once radiant and energetic Vanessa now looks haggard, and her apartment is in disarray. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. but a glimmer of hope flashed in her eyes. "Sophie was worried about you," he replied truthfully, "and I came to see if you needed any help." Vanessa shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't deserve any help, especially from you. I destroyed everything that was good, and now I have to live with the consequences." Connor looked at the woman who had once been the love of his life and felt a mixture of emotions. The pain of anger and betrayal is still there, but there is also a nostalgia for a shared history. "This is not how I want to see it end, Vanessa," he said calmly. "No matter what you've done, I don't want to see you self-destruct like this." "I lost everything that was important to me," she whispers. "My daughters barely speak to me. My friends have left. My career is over. And it's all of my own making." Connor didn't comfort her, because those words would seem false at the moment. Instead, he cleaned her apartment, made sure she had enough food, and then left a card for a psychiatrist. "Consider professional help," he said before leaving. "If not for yourself, for Sophie and Amelia." Connor felt a strange sense of relief after this meeting. Seeing Vanessa pay for her choices somehow makes him realize that the revenge is done and it's time to really let go of the past and move on. Time passes and seasons change. 2 years later, on a spring day, Connor was sitting on an outdoor seat in a London cafe, enjoying the warm sunshine. His life has been rebuilt: a new apartment, a fulfilling job, a restored social circle, and even the start of a new relationship. The pain was still somewhere in his heart, but it had become part of history and no longer dominated his present or future. He hears that Vanessa eventually went into psychotherapy and slowly began to rebuild her life. She got a teaching job, teaching foundation courses at a design school. Her relationship with her daughters is also slowly repairing, especially with Amelia, who seems to have grown and matured from the experience. There are no winners in this story, only losers and learners of varying degrees. But for those on the sidelines, it offers a profound lesson. Marriages and families are built on trust and fidelity, and betraying that trust, for whatever reason, has irreversible consequences. In a small apartment in North London, Vanessa stood alone in front of the window, looking out at the spring landscape. Her life has been changed forever. The love she once had, a complete family, a brilliant career, a multitude of friends, it's all been lost to her on a whim. There is no glamorous reunion, no touching forgiveness, only learning to live with remorse and finding meaning in existence in a new reality. On her desk was a letter from Amelia from Edinburgh. In the letter, her daughter tells her about her graduate studies and her new boyfriend, and invites her to stay in Scotland for the summer. This is a small but important sign of reconciliation. Vanessa picked up her cell phone and looked at the pictures of her daughters on the screen as tears slid down her face. This is the true cost of betrayal, the hurt that can never be fully repaired, the stain that can never be erased, and the eternal nostalgia for the good that was once possessed but not cherished. And across town, Connor stands on the balcony of his new home, breathing in the crisp spring air, with his new partner Sarah, an architect he met during counseling, standing beside him. The pain was still there, but it no longer consumed his soul. He learned to accept, to let go, to rebuild from the ashes. That night, he received a text from Sophie. "Dad, thank you for being so strong all the time. Amelia and I had a long conversation today, and we both realized how you protected us during this storm. I love you." Connor read the message and felt the corners of his eyes moisten. No matter what he's been through, his most prized possession, the love and respect of his daughters, remains intact. That's life, full of choices and consequences. Every decision, no matter how small, can change everything. And in love and marriage, fidelity is not a choice, but a commitment, and the cost of breaking it is often far greater than imagined. Those who seek the thrill of the moment and betray the promise of the long haul will eventually realize that the so-called once-in-a-lifetime adventures can destroy everything they have built up over a lifetime. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.